I'm David Teague, and I'd like to welcome you to Winston-Salem Friends Meeting's prepared message for the 12th of January 2025. We didn't gather in person today because the recent winter storm in this part of North Carolina has kept us all at home out of concern for our safety. You might remember that a few messages ago, I told you that I like the old TV show Seventh Heaven. It was about Eric Camden, a Protestant minister in one of those community churches, his wife Annie, and their 5, later 7, children. I think I also mentioned that one of the things I liked most about the show was its presentation of a Christian viewpoint that wasn't a fundamentalist one. I'm thinking of this particular episode today called Nobody Knows, which was set while Annie was pregnant with her 2 youngest children. Ruthie, the youngest of the original 5 kids, has been in school for a little while now, and Ruthie gets into trouble trying to use the phone list which her class has put together. She starts calling the numbers on the list to see whether they're accurate, and starts talking to a woman named Mabel, played by Phyllis Diller. Ruthie thinks that Mabel is one of those TV psychics. She tells Mabel that her next oldest brother, Simon, has been worried about his girlfriend, who has an upcoming medical appointment to make sure that her childhood leukemia is still in remission. Mabel tells Ruthie that everything will be all right. Shortly after Annie learns what her youngest daughter has been up to, she gives Mabel a call in which she finds out that rather than being a psychic, Mabel is really just an older woman who has started receiving these random phone calls from a little girl she doesn't know. And being a kind-hearted person, Mabel doesn't want to frighten the child. So she tries to reassure Ruthie until one of Ruthie's parents finds out what's going on and will intervene. Now, speaking of these TV psychics, I don't know if anybody who's watching this message remembers Miss Cleo. She starred in an infomercial or two for the Psychic Readers Network down in Florida back in the late 1990s and early 2000s. This one particular video featured Miss Cleo asking a woman who had supposedly called for assistance in deciding between 2 suitors whether she was talking about the married one or the young stupid one. Miss Cleo claimed to be a psychic and shaman from Jamaica. Now, the thing about it was that I was working in the Jamestown Library in those days, and we had a frequent patron of the library named Marcia, who actually was from Jamaica originally. Marcia and I were friends. And in fact, Marcia may be the one who drew my attention to Miss Cleo in the first place, because Marcia couldn't tell where the woman was actually from. And so I watched enough, excuse me, at least to hear the way she sounded, and I couldn't tell either. But I could tell this, I can tell you this, although Marcia and I weren't sure where Miss Cleo was from, we were convinced, based on her accent, that the closest she had ever come to Jamaica or any of the other islands was living and working down in Florida. The woman sounded like she was doing the Caribbean version of one of those dreadful Southern accents that you hear in movies or TV shows. You know the sort, the kind of accents that make real Southerners cringe when we hear it. As it turned out, based on evidence presented in the fraud trial down in Florida, in which the Psychic Readers Network and their founders were the defendants, Miss Cleo was really an actress who was born in Los Angeles to two American citizens. And the whole idea behind the scam was to keep people talking on one of those expensive 1-900 phone lines for as long as possible by telling them what they wanted to hear. Now, most of us have at least some curiosity about the future, don't we? This can be as innocent as checking the weather forecast, which I admit can be very important to know. Just think about the winter storm and the snow and sleet we received at the start of this very weekend, or the updates on the paths which hurricanes and tornadoes are taking. Your safety, sometimes your very life, can hinge on knowing what the weather appears likely to do. On the other hand, you also get the people who consult palmists, tarot card readers, and astrologers. All you have to do is look on YouTube and you'll find them predicting all sorts of things. The administration will find evidence that the election was stolen and the whole thing will have to be rerun. The inauguration will be delayed while the fraud is investigated. And so on. And then there were the aspiring prophets who posted about the COVID vaccine. Some of them saw the vaccine as Satan's trap for Christians. At least one other of these prophets was one whose prophetic word included the principles that God doesn't call us to live in a spirit of fear. And I actually agree with him there. And that we need to follow Paul's teaching that those who are stronger in faith should avoid causing others to stumble, which has some merit as well. I even saw that there was a YouTube video in which one of these self-proclaimed prophets claimed that the world would be visited this past 29th of December by beings everyone would think were angels of light, but they would actually turn out to be emissaries of Satan. If you're like me, you haven't noticed any such thing as that during these past 2 weeks. Now, I don't mean to denigrate God's actual gift of prophecy, nor do I wish to deny that there are some folks who can see a few steps farther down the road than the rest of us, just because they've been gifted with the ability to perceive and understand trends a little better than most of us. But we Quakers have a saying about not speaking unless we can improve the silence. The silence in which we meet God, that is. What that means, among other things, is that we need to be careful before we take on the burden and the responsibility of speaking on God's behalf. Now, that being said, there's often a certain amount of nervousness when this country gets a new president. That was true in 2017. It was certainly true 4 years ago, and it's definitely true again this year. If we had been able to meet in person today, our first hymn would have spoken directly to that. It's called Watchman, Tell Us of the Night. And I came across it last week while looking for hymns for the Sunday service when my friend Kim Williams brought last week's prepared message. He spoke about the visit of the wise men to see the baby Jesus. These are the words of the hymn, which you can find in the hymnary.org website, or and you can find the tune, which is Aberystwyth, or if you know it by words that are often sung to it, Jesus, lover of my soul. You can find those on YouTube. Anyway, the lyrics. Watchman, tell us of the night, what its signs of promise are. Traveler, o'er yon mountain's height, see that glory beaming star. Watchman, does its beauteous ray aught of hope or joy foretell? Traveler, yes, it brings the day, promised day of Israel. Watchman, tell us of the night, higher yet the star ascends. Traveler, blessedness and light, peace and truth its course portends. Watchman, will its beams alone gild the spot that gave them birth? Traveler, ages are its own. See, it bursts o'er all the earth. Watchman, tell us of the night, for the morning seems to dawn. Traveler, darkness takes its flight. Doubt and terror are withdrawn. Watchman, let thy wanderings cease. Hie thee to thy quiet home. Traveler, lo, the Prince of Peace, lo, the Son of God is come. In writing this hymn, which was first published exactly 200 years ago in 1825, John Bowring drew upon a somewhat obscure passage in the 21st chapter of Isaiah, which goes like this. For thus the Lord said to me, Go set a watchman, let him announce what he sees. When he sees riders, horsemen in pairs, riders on camels, riders on donkeys, let him listen diligently, very diligently. Then he who saw cried, Upon a watchtower I stand, O Lord, continually by day, and at my post I am stationed every night. And behold, here come riders, horsemen in pairs. And he answered, Fallen, fallen is Babylon, and all the images of her gods he has shattered to the ground. O my threshed and withered and winnowed one, what I have heard from the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I announce to you. The oracle concerning Edom. One is calling to me from Seir. Watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? The watchman says, Morning comes and also the night. If you will inquire, inquire. Come back again. In the original passage from the Bible, the watchman is obviously the prophet, and part of the message is to announce the fall of Babylon, which eventually becomes the archetypal enemy of the people of God. This message argues that the passage was written about the same time as Isaiah 40 to 55 and chapter 35, which the majority of modern biblical scholars think dates from the 540s BCE. The captivity was ending. The exiled people of Judah were being told to prepare to go home, or the homes of their parents and grandparents, most of them. As an aside, if you keep up with literary news, you might remember that about 10 years ago, the phrase, Go set a watchman from Isaiah 21:6 was used as the title of the first draft of the book, which is much better known under the title given to its second draft when that second draft was published, To Kill a Mockingbird. In 2015, they published the original first draft under the title Go Set a Watchman. But that question, Watchman, what of the night, has this haunting quality about it. And it can mean either how much longer will the night last, or what is it that the night is bringing us? The first possibility, how much longer will this night last, is more of a metaphorical way of asking how much longer our suffering or oppression will continue, in which case the enigmatic answer, Morning comes, and also the night. If you will inquire, come back again, speaks to the impermanence of life. Good happens, and then bad happens, as we are all too painfully aware. But in writing this hymn, John Bowring combines the question from Isaiah with the journey of the wise men following the Star of Bethlehem. And he takes the second possibility. What is this night bringing us? Therefore, the traveler in Bowring's hymn can't be one of the Magi, one of the wise men, since they knew what the star was leading them toward. Because the traveler sees a star which turns out to be a beacon of hope. The traveler must be following the path taken by the wise men to find Jesus. So the traveler can't be one of the wise men. I know that in just over a week, at least some of you think that we are about to embark upon a scary time. But one of the thoughts I want to leave you with is this one. Our work remains the same. Do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with God, and it's more important than ever. We could do much worse than to follow these words of advice from Rabbi Chaim Stern. When evil darkens our world, let us be the bearers of light. When dissent is stifled, let our voices speak truth to power. When the earth and its creatures are threatened, let us be their guardians. When bias, greed, and bigotry erode our country's values, let us proclaim liberty throughout the land. In the places where no one acts like a human being, let us bring courage. Let us bring compassion. Let us bring humanity. For as our own rabbi, the Lord Jesus, tells us, we are called to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. Go forth and be salt and light. Amen.